Job opportunities for those without prior work experience could be getting hard to come by. Our online job portal, Indeed, says that openings for fresh graduates who aren't in tech, management or sales have declined by over a third in September. That's compared to the same month last year.
Other numbers come after official figures for the second quarter showed that the unemployment rate for those younger than 30 was higher than the national average. More, we're joined by Richard Bradshaw. He's CEO of Asia and Europe at Ethos Beith Chapman, a global group of executive recruitment experts. Mr. Bradshaw, youth unemployment higher than average unemployment rates. Is that something to worry about?
Well, look, typically youth unemployment rates are always higher than the adult counterparts. So I don't think it's anything particularly out of the ordinary that this can always be compounded in tighter labour markets. Obviously speaking, employers and hiring managers in times of uncertainty might err on the side of experience over inexperience. So I don't think this is anything unusual. I don't think it's necessarily the meaning that we can extract from it is nothing panic-worthy, I don't think. And we can't forget that Singapore is just on the back of a 24-year low of youth unemployment as of 2022.
Well, it seems like we really are in an employer's market right now. Before we get into that, Richard, we're going to talk more about it. Let's first take a look at how the employment situation what it looks like from the lens of one of our young workers.
My name is Annie and I'm currently 22 this year. I graduated from a diploma with early childhood 2 years ago. I decided to venture into special education. I sent my resume on this website called My Careers Future. However, only about one of the company replied to me after about 1 month. So within this time frame, I basically have no job to do. Currently, I'm working as a part-time event crew. I think having short courses to help people who are passionate in the special needs industry will definitely help. And other than that, it would be great if the employers can also keep their website up to date.
So, Richard, Annie's experience, not a great one. She only heard back from one employer despite, sort of reaching out there and casting her net, doing her homework, but she couldn't land the job that she wanted to. Is it a sign, perhaps, that there is a mismatch going on between what graduates are learning versus what the market really wants?
Yeah, so, it's very sad to see the plight of any individual job seeker, especially at that youth age category, which youth is 15 to 24 in this instance. Very sad to see. I don't think we should lose sight of the fact, though, the strong position Singapore is in, the track record Singapore has for recovery. For example, the youth unemployment jumped up to, I think, 11% back in 2020. Down to 6% in 2022. Very sad to see people like Annie in that sort of situation, of course. I think at a macro type of level, if you look at the grad courses that Singaporeans are doing, this is technology, it's engineering, it's infocomms, health, medicine. If you then look at the shortage occupation list, for example, which has been a hot topic, a very topical subject for Singapore this last 12 months in particular, and Singapore's fastest growing industries, these are the same. It's health, it's medicine, it's manufacturing, it's engineering. And so absolutely, it's very sad to obviously see any individual plight, but I think at a macro level and generally speaking, I think Singapore can be pretty content with how it's aligning its graduate courses with where the market of Singapore is going.
Right.
All right. Annie, she said eventually she took her current job is as a part-time event crew. I take it the salary from that is probably far below what she might have expected to get, given what she was studying in school, her educational experience. Would you recommend taking lower pay for the moment in the hope that might lead to something better? Or does that trap you forever unable to rise to the value that you think your education should have given you?
I think when the subject of lower pay arises, it's the perennial angle or question here. Does this pigeonhole me? Does this trap me? Does this put me on a lower trajectory longer term in my career? I think a few bits and pieces to share here to sort of add some context. First, I'd be amiss to try and be overly prophetic here and say that the market's going to turn on an exact date. I think the common consensus is that sort of 3, 6, 9 months away, we are going to see maybe not a complete shift from an employer's market to employees' market, but I think there is a turning point coming in the short term rather than the long term. I think in people like Annie's cases, and there are quite a few of them at the moment, she really needs to focus, and anyone in this sort of situation needs to focus on what value they can extract, whether it's an internship, whether it's a lower paying job. What is the other currency that they can derive from a part-time job or another position in the meantime? I think employers often look at how people have constructively used their time, if it's not their ideal job of choice, or they're not moving, I suppose, up their rungs on the ladder that they particularly want to. And so, look, I think if Annie in that position or anyone in that sort of position, whether it's a part-time events position, it's the value you can extract. And if you are advancing yourself and you're using that time constructively, I think that's the best thing someone
All right,
can do.
the story from our next profile is someone who has done exactly that. She is a fresh grad who had trouble finding a job despite ending school 3 months early, but she's adding value. Let's take a listen to her story.
Hey guys, so today I'll be doing a day in the life of a freelance content creator, so follow me.
My name is Faira and I'm a recent NUS business graduate and my specialization was in marketing. Right now I'm just a freelance, unemployed content creator. I actually started looking for a job starting of this year in January itself. It was actually quite difficult. They always needed someone with a lot more experience, although they said fresh grads. Even though it was demoralizing, I realized that, you know what, I actually have to brush up on my skills. So I have to really try out my social media strategy, my content creation skills.
This is so sick! Sick and twisted!
It still is a lonely journey, by the way, but I think what governments and schools can do is just really help us. It's more of like the emotional support and connection.
Right, we heard from Fahira there, Ms. Bradshaw. She says she could have done with some help. Disappointments in life, they are there all the way. Certainly, it's not going to end even if she gets the job of her dreams. But given, get a realistic take on this, what kind of support, really, should young people be getting at this stage in their lives?
Yeah, again, very, very tough situation. And, Singapore being so passionate about employment, gainful employment, technical advancements, training its people to be ahead of the curve and sort of highly skilled. It's obviously frustrating to see someone in Fahira's position there. Look, there's a variety of things going on. To pinpoint the ones I think are probably most dear to me and what I see, and I think some of the most important ones. First and foremost is that community feel. It can feel taboo. People in that situation, they feel like the outlier. They feel like they're not wanted, not valuable. I would sort of go back to a few of the points I made earlier there. In that sort of situation, is there something that you can do constructively with that time? If you're not sort of hitting the notes that you want to, how can you fill up your time? But yeah, creating that community, trying as best as we can to kind of make it less taboo and be more realistic about the macro level events and the prevailing market around us. But I think ultimately it's about, trying to pinpoint why we haven't got this job. The market does move quickly. Labour forces are moving quite quickly at the moment. And again, if there is time out, if we're not landing that job of our dreams, if we're not landing that job of our choice, again, how can we advance ourselves? How can we ask ourselves the key exam questions of, do we have the right skill set? Can we upskill? And sort of take things from there.
I mean, what you say is so true, Richard, because, community is important, but for lots of these fresh grads, they may have even moved away from their sort of core group as they've dispersed. So some of them might have different experiences. Some of their friends perhaps might be luckier and so on. It's important, I think, as well for them to have access to those resources. How available, once they've left the sort of formal education system and they're out there, how accessible is that to them?
Well, I think, again, if we look at the last few years of track record, I think they've, just sort of hailing back a few years ago, the Singapore grant system for, government-funded skills programs, trainings. There's a number of sort of certificates and sort of gainful training you can get via Singapore government. So I think it's come a long way in the last few years. So I think it's in reasonably close touch. But again, for that youth category, I think especially 15 to 24-year-olds, especially people around that sort of teenage or just going into their early 20s, it is their first foray into the world of work. They're just coming off a sort of year and a half period where the job market was going crazy and everybody was getting multiple offers and could get the job of their dreams. And so I think that sort of put things in a little bit of an unfair perspective and contrast as well. So, it's not a complete blueprint, but I think that creating and fostering that sense of community, reminding them that they're not on their own, reminding them that the skills, advancements, courses, the training is on hand. And I do feel it's closer than ever for those types of people. And also a big one for me is that, the market doesn't tend to be bad for too long. I know that is not the words that everybody wants to hear. But again, general consensus is that it will be more of an employee-led market at some time, we feel, sort of early, mid next year.
Yeah, don't give up hope.
Don't give up hope, absolutely. That's right.
And thanks for joining us this evening, Richard Bradshaw, CEO of Asia and Europe at Ethos Beef Chapman.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.